I think the Ledger Nano X is an ample upgrade from the Nano S. However, it's only an upgrade if... What is up, Hash Nation? In this video today, we are comparing the Ledger Nano X and the Ledger Nano S. If you're still trying to figure out which one you should buy, whether they're worth it, whether they're good, this is the video for you. So without further ado, let's hash it out. So like I said in the intro, guys, we're comparing the Ledger Nano X, the new device, with the Ledger Nano S, the old device from the Ledger family of hardware wallets. Many folks have asked me which one I would buy between the two and which one I recommend, and we're gonna go through all the different characteristics of these devices today and help you make that decision for yourself. Now guys, at any time during this video, if you wanna go check out the Ledger Nano X or the Ledger Nano S, you can find that in the link in the description below or in the pinned comments. Now, first and foremost, let's talk about the physical build of the device. What do they look like? What does the outside feel like? How is it to use? Both devices have a very similar design pattern. They have a hinged design with a metal outside piece that folds over a plastic piece where the screen is. They're both very compact devices, but the Ledger Nano X is significantly larger than the Ledger Nano S in size. The Ledger Nano X also has a brushed metal finish rather than the more glossy finish of the Ledger Nano S. Another big difference cosmetically between the two is that the Ledger Nano X, the new device, has two front-facing buttons that are on the face of the device rather than the two small buttons on the very top edge of the device like you saw in the Nano S. For me personally, I prefer the front face buttons on the Ledger Nano X, but both are quite comparable in terms of navigating on the devices themselves. The screen sizes between the two are very different. The Ledger Nano X screen size is significantly larger than that of the Ledger Nano S. Even though the functionality of both screens are very similar, it's definitely easier to see things on the Nano X when you're confirming your address, navigating through apps. It's just easier to use and see on that screen. However, that is not a deal breaker in my book to buy the Nano X over the Nano S just for screen size. In my personal opinion, I feel that the Ledger Nano X has a more premium feel and definitely better build quality than the Ledger Nano S, but the Ledger Nano S is definitely not shabby in terms of its overall build and form. And the last point I want to make about the physical design of the devices is that the Ledger Nano X uses a USB Type-C connection, while the Ledger Nano S uses a micro USB. I personally prefer USB Type-C, but that's just because a lot of my devices use that already. Now let's discuss the actual features of both of these devices. One of the main differences is that the Ledger Nano X is Bluetooth enabled, meaning it can work with your mobile device on the Ledger Live mobile app on iOS and Android. Whereas the Ledger Nano S is desktop only, meaning you connect it using your USB cable and use the Ledger Live desktop application like most people are already familiar with. Now that does not mean that the Nano X cannot be used on the desktop, but I've definitely found that using it with the mobile app is definitely a lot easier than getting it connected up every single time you want to use it. Another big thing that differentiates the Ledger Nano S versus the Ledger Nano X is the ability to hold a larger number of apps. And there's kind of a conspiracy going on right now with this whole app debate and how many apps you can fit on these devices. The Ledger Nano X can hold more apps than are even available right now, up to 100 they say. And I have tested this. I've gone through the Ledger Live application. I've installed every single app you can possibly have on the Nano X. It holds them all, no problem. On the Ledger Nano S, however, I'm on firmware 1.4.1, I believe. And at that firmware update level, I was able to get 9 applications on the device at the same time. However, for folks that have updated recently, they're reporting they're only able to get 3 or 4 applications on their device, best case scenario. I've done some testing on this. I can't really tell if this was done purposefully or if this was just a mistake. I know there was a big outcry about security, and I have a feeling that Ledger probably tightened up the constraints for uploading applications to the device on the Nano S for security reasons, but I've reached out to them and I'll see if they comment back. So in terms of the number of apps you can fit onto the device itself, the Ledger Nano X wins by a large proportion. And if the number of apps you can use on your device is important to you, then I would say Ledger Nano X is the way to go. In terms of crypto support, both devices have the exact same list of supported cryptocurrencies. They're both created by the same company, and all the applications through Ledger Live work the same way on both devices. One thing to note is that the Ledger Nano X being a new device, some of the functionalities that have third-party connections, for example, using the Tron wallet or using my Ether wallet, are probably going to be a little bit finicky. They might not work perfectly out of the box. I've heard some reports of people having issues, so definitely keep that in mind. In terms of the interface for both devices, they are almost exactly the same. If you really want to start to nitpick, the color scheme, the sort of white on black color scheme of the Nano X is different than the sort of blue on purplish color scheme on the Ledger Nano S. And the navigation buttons using the left, right, and then double clicking to select an option are the exact same between both. The Ledger Nano X added a couple of new little features to the user interface that I definitely do enjoy, like a long press of both buttons to navigate back to the home screen rather than having to scroll all the way to settings, down to quit, then double clicking. Those are just little things that they've added that they can for sure add to the Nano S in terms of the software updates. One thing I haven't gotten to test yet on the Nano X is actually a firmware update itself. So many people had issues doing firmware updates on the Nano S, and a lot of people are worried about the Nano X firmware update process because of that. I share that concern. As soon as I have the opportunity to update firmware, I'll create a whole video about it and my experience. But in terms of the Nano S, the firmware update experience has been a little bit rough over the past several years, and I really hope that they can get this polished up in the future as they release new firmware. Now, I think an important topic that everyone wants to know about: security. In terms of security, both devices are pretty much interchangeable. I don't really see that one has a significant advantage over the other. However, I do know that the Ledger Nano X having Bluetooth can potentially be used poorly. For example, if you're carrying it around with you all the time with your phone, and you have a really weak PIN, like your last 4 digits of your phone number or your birth year, and then someone gets into your phone, if they have both your PIN and your Ledger Nano X plus your phone, and they can get into that phone, they can theoretically get into your crypto, transfer it all to themselves, do whatever they want with it. And that's obviously not something that you want. In terms of the Ledger Nano S, unless you're carrying it around with your laptop, it's very unlikely that someone's going to be able to get access to both the device, your laptop, etc., all at the same time. This is definitely stretching it a little bit in terms of what people will do, but you always have to think about the dumbest possible thing people will do with the device, and having a Bluetooth enabled device that people are going to be carrying around with their phone all the time. Theoretically, there are some more attack vectors that you have to be concerned about. That's less about the device itself and more about how people handle it, but because this was built to use Bluetooth, it's definitely something people have to think about. In terms of the physical storage of the private keys themselves and the actual hardware of the device that's devoted to storage and bootloading and firmware, etc., both devices are very similar. The Nano X has one generation later of the same CC-EAL certified chip that are used to operate the device itself. However, this is a very minimal change, and it doesn't really have much of an effect in terms of the security of the device itself. So overall, the security of both devices are very similar, if not exactly the same. There are just different ways that you have to go about protecting yourself using the Bluetooth-enabled device than just leaving it at home with the Ledger Nano S and using it on your home computer. So let's talk price. At the current time, as I've checked on the Ledger website, the Ledger Nano S is available in I think 6 or 7 different colors, and it's available for $60 US. The Ledger Nano X, on the other hand, is available for $119 US. You can also buy the two devices together, so you can get a Ledger Nano X and a Ledger Nano S to back up that Ledger Nano X for $150 US, which is essentially a 50% discount off of that Ledger Nano S if you buy them together. So which one should you buy, and should you upgrade if you already have a Ledger Nano S? In my humble opinion, if you already have a Ledger Nano S, your money would be better spent on getting a device like the Steely, like CryptoTag, pretty much any Steal backup device for your seed phrase to protect your cryptocurrency better. The Ledger Nano S is perfectly fine in terms of its functionality as a device. The fact that you have to uninstall and install apps because you can't fit very many on there, that's definitely inconvenient, but I guess it's really up to you. If $120 spent on a Ledger Nano X is worth having the ability to store up to 100 apps on there. That is really the decision criteria for me. If that's really important to you and you use your Nano S every day and it gets really obnoxious having to upload apps, pull apps off, move things around just to use your crypto, then Ledger Nano X might be for you. Furthermore, if you like to carry around crypto with you, but you want it on cold storage every day, not on your cell phone wallet, having the Ledger Nano X is probably a really good choice for you as well. To me, if you're perfectly happy with a Trezor Model T or your Keep Key or your Ledger Nano S, you don't have to go out and spend the $120 to get the Ledger Nano X itself. If you're new to the cryptocurrency world, you're trying to get yourself a hardware wallet, you don't know which one to choose, I think you can't go wrong with either choice. If you have the funds and you would like to use the Ledger Nano X because you want to have access to the mobile, I think it's a really good buy. I think it's a solid device. I've not had any issues with it. However, I also understand that budgets can be a constraint, and the Ledger Nano S is a perfectly fine hardware wallet for people who are new to crypto that might not be trading it all that often, and they want to just put their crypto in cold storage, as you should. I think the Nano S for $60 is an absolute steal. And if you want to pick yourself up a Ledger Nano X or a Ledger Nano S, or even that bundle, you can go down in the description or the pinned comment below and pick one up for yourself. So let me know in the comments below, again, what you think between the two devices. Do you use a Nano S? Do you have a Nano X? What do you think about them in comparison? Definitely want to hear what you think. And don't forget to check out other pieces of content that I have on my channel, maybe like this one right here, or this one right here. I'd really appreciate all the time that you spend watching my videos, and I thank you very much. Cheers.